Welcome to Strange Mysterious World, Season 4, Episode 20. Tonight's guests, Rabbi Simon Jacobson, all the way from the United States of America. And today, or tonight, we're going to be chatting about the Kabbalah, something we've never done before. So this is a first. Really looking forward to that. And yeah, let's bring him on.
How are you?
Evening. Good evening, Rabbi. How are you?
Good evening, Rabbi.
And it's morning here, so good evening to you. Where are you?
We're in South Africa.
Okay.
Awesome.
So, good morning from New York.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
And lovely to have you on here, Simon. Thank you for coming.
My pleasure to be here. How are you guys?
No, fantastic.
Yeah, good, thanks. Very good.
Rabbi,
you see
sorry.
And hear me well? You can see and hear me well?
Yes.
Can see you very good.
Thank you.
Good
Nice
background. Yeah.
Nice lighting. That's great.
I like your colors. Interesting psychedelic colors.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Yeah.
So, Rabbi, thank you for coming on to Strange Mysterious World.
Pleasure.
I was actually watching one of your podcasts on the Kabbalah, and I thought, man, this is a man we have to have on our show. Because, yes, it is a strange and mysterious world, and the Kabbalah is definitely a strange and mysterious thing. So could you explain the whole thing to us? I understand it's the mystic side of the Torah, but I mean, how does one actually interpret these type of things? I mean, is it there's a lot of work that goes into that kind of stuff.
By all means, and I love that your title, "Strange and Mysterious World," right? So it fits right in.
It does.
Look, maybe the best way to put it into layman's terms, we look at the world around us with our eyes, our sight, sound, taste, touch, and smell. And the fact is, I think we all understand today that what you see is not what you get. You look at the world, I see a tree out my window, I see a bird, I see the sky, I see a table, a chair, I see you. But as soon as you dig beneath the surface, you realize there's so much more happening. What we call energy. You're not just a body, you also have a soul within you. You have something that makes you tick. Whether you call it DNA, or your genes, or your cellular structure, or in physics, the atomic and subatomic energy. All these things are invisible to the eye and to our five senses, and yet they're more real than ever because they shape all of reality. So in a sense, the Kabbalah is really a study of the inner workings that may be strange and mysterious ostensibly to most of us, but when you really think about it, it's really where the action is taking place. It's the engine room, if you wish. Today we're using technology. How am I able to see you and speak to you thousands of miles away? I'm in New York, you're in South Africa. There are forces that we are accessing and tapping into that we cannot see, but we can definitely benefit from, in a sense, travel beyond time and space. That's what we're doing. For me to be able to come to South Africa and be with you physically there, would have to take, it's a 16-hour flight, I believe. And here we are instantaneously communicating as if we're sitting right near each other. So I think we live in a world where we've become comfortable with that invisible, mysterious reality that really connects us all, and is very different than the outer surface. A good example would be, you look at the ocean. On the surface level, you wouldn't really know what's going on beneath the surface. If we had never taken cameras or never done any scuba diving, we wouldn't know how comprehensive, how complex the ecosystem under the sea is. But now we do. So in a way, the natural world covers up those forces that really make everything tick and make everything be. So the Kabbalah is a study of that. So it's a study of the human psyche, the human subconscious, as well as the cosmic psyche and the cosmic subconscious. It's the best way I could describe it.
Yeah. But now, so I know we do have a little bit of studies on kind of alternate things as well. And obviously we've come to the conclusion, as exactly as you've mentioned, everything in this universe is frequency, vibration. Everything vibrates at a certain frequency. Your solid matters vibrate at a lower frequency. Your not so solid stuff vibrates at a higher frequency. Even music vibrates at a frequency, and you can actually see those patterns when you're doing the music studies of vibration. You can actually see there's specific patterns that they create, which is actually fantastic. So yeah, so now how does that come into the actual Torah side of it? So we have a story. Let's just take, for example, I don't know, the story of Joseph and his Technicolor coat. Obviously, he was sold as a slave by his own family. He then gets up to Egypt. He lands up in prison. He spends time in prison. And then obviously he comes out. He then reaches a higher level. But he forgives his family in the end. That's like very basic rundown of it. But there's actually a hidden meaning to that story. There's actually a lot more going on there than people realize. And how do people actually get their minds to that state? Because most people know level 1, the story of Joseph. They don't know. Yeah.
Okay, good, very good. I gave you a type of universal take on what Kabbalah is. Now, to apply it, let's say, to the Bible and the biblical stories, here's the key thing to remember. Most people who read the Torah or the Bible, again, on a surface level, it's a narrative, a biblical narrative about people who lived 4,000 years ago, mostly in Middle East, and gone through their experiences. And you read it on a very ostensible surface level. It's a nice story. Some of it has ethical and inspirational teachings. A lot of it, many people see as archaic and don't really see its personal relevance. But when you look at the Bible with the Kabbalistic lens that we're describing, then every story is really a deeper spiritual story. So let's take the story of Joseph, exactly as you put it. He was one of 12 brothers and one sister. He was favored by his father, Jacob. His brothers were jealous, and they decided to eliminate him. First, they thought of killing him. Then they sell him into slavery. He ends up in Egypt. They were living in Israel at the time. He ends up in Egypt, in prison, but slowly he rises in a series of events. He ends up becoming the viceroy, the second in command to Pharaoh, and he turns Egypt into a superpower. Grain was the commodity of the time. And the story continues how he ends up meeting his brothers. They don't recognize him. He recognizes them. Very dramatic reunion. And the story continues, of course, with the famous exile and exodus in Egypt. I'm not going to go through all the details. So when you look at it, it's an interesting story that has become very popular in modern culture. Joseph's colored coat. There's all kinds of films and others that have been written about it. The Kabbalistic perspective, which I would call it a psycho-spiritual perspective, will tell the story of our own lives. That we all will encounter in life challenges that often take the shape of whether it's jealousy or other forms, and we will be thrown into a dungeon in our lives, whether it could be psychological oppression as in fear or insecurity. And this is the story of rags to riches in a way, where a person almost could have become hopeless and helpless, and instead took a situation and turned it into a redemption. When he meets his brothers and they're so embarrassed and they're like, want to bury themselves because they realized 22 years ago they had sold their brother into slavery, he says to them, don't think you did this to me. This was by divine hand. This was meant to be for me to come here to Egypt and become a leader and ultimately save you and our family and ultimately save the world, because there was a great famine taking place. So you learn from this, what a tremendous psychological lesson of resilience, of the power of spirit, of recognizing that even when bad things happen to you, you never know. They may lead you to deeper places. And when you go deeper into the Kabbalistic teachings, it actually goes into a whole discussion of the spiritual archetype of Joseph, of Judah. I can go further if you want me to. I just wanted to give just an overview of this particular story. So then the story comes alive more than just a biblical Torah story that happened thousands of years ago. It's really the story of our lives. There's a Joseph within each one of us. There's the challenges we face. There's the growth that we can experience through those challenges, and that becomes part of a very living and relevant personal narrative in our lives today. That's essentially how the Kabbalah looks at things. It looks at, you talk about frequency and energy. Yes, the energy of Joseph is a form of redemptive energy, finding the good even in the darkness, finding the spark, the divine spark, even when all seems lost. Again, if you want me to elaborate more, I can, but I'm trying to keep it brief as well.
No, that's cool. I'm happy with that. So I'm assuming, look, the Torah, that which was written a very long time ago, was written specifically in a way that there were certain people that could understand. I'm assuming, you just correct me if I'm wrong. There's certain people that would understand its hidden meanings. My question, Rabbi, why didn't the guys actually pass that on? So the people that understood the Torah in those specific, in the text or the lens of the Kabbalah, why didn't they pass it on to people and say, listen, this is not just a story of Joseph and his family and his plight and his rise. It's actually a story about you. It's you, how you can come out of. It always fascinated me that I understand, and everything I read now, I try and find a hidden meaning. Everything, because once I'd listened to your podcast, I now go and I try and see if I can find the hidden meaning in everything that I read. But it just fascinated me why they didn't kind of pass it on.
It's a great question. I had that question myself when I was a young child, because when I was studying, I went to yeshiva, which was a Torah school that taught me Torah, and I read all these stories. And I began asking these questions. I was by nature a skeptic. So I asked these questions. I say, why are we being told these stories? Why are they relevant to us? I mean, obviously, it's always nice to hear ancient history and our ancestry and so on. And then when I started understanding the deeper, so-called mystical, esoteric, Kabbalistic, then I asked, so why was that not passed on? You know what I discovered it was? That's how we know about it.
Okay.
It was passed on because here is an important thing. Maimonides writes this. The Torah itself that we read is almost like short notes that somebody wrote down that has layers and layers of meaning. And without a teacher, you really can't understand it. So there were teachers who actually documented what they call the oral tradition, starting from Moses and even prior to Moses, and they passed it on. At the time, in those years, everything was memorized. But then, approximately, I would say 2,500 years ago, Kabbalists and other sages began to write down these teachings. That's why you ever heard of the Zohar, is one of a classic. It goes back almost 2,000 years. So you have actual books that wrote down the mystical interpretations, and they were passed on teacher to student, teacher to student. And it's only in the last 500 years that it really became more popularized. But there were always individuals who knew it. It was almost like a secret code. Think of like music. People who passed on the secret of composing songs that went from student to teacher to student, teacher to student. And when you read it now, I'm able to, because I've become a scholar in this, I can trace and see how it reached us. Because that was my first question. Is this some innovation of a new age innovation of the 20th century or something like that? And then I realized, no, this has been documented. And I can give you the names and actually the books that document that go back literally centuries. And it's very fascinating. But so basically when you read the Torah, think of it as the abbreviated version of a story that has many layers in it. And the fascinating thing is that it was written not in Kabbalistic language, it was written in story form. Joseph, Judah, Jacob, this one, that one, different places, but every name, Hebrew name, actually has mystical meaning. The word Joseph means something. The word, even Egypt in Hebrew, Mitzrayim, maybe you know this, but Mitzrayim means limitations, constraints, inhibitions, fears. It refers to all things that limit us. So every one of these Hebrew words, actually Hebrew is a very metaphorical language that has much more meaning than just the translation of a word. It doesn't just mean Egypt. Israel doesn't just mean Israel. It has a whole deeper meaning, and I can obviously elaborate if you like.
Is it also not a case of perhaps in the time when the original stories were written, the people weren't ready. So it's like the Zohar, for example. The Zohar had been hidden for, I think it was 1,000 odd years before it came back into light, and I think that was up in Spain, if I stand to be corrected,
Yeah.
where that was now brought to light. And it was, the guy actually said, the rabbi said that the reason it's been brought to light now is because back in the day, the people were not ready for that message. They had a different life, and there were different worries and different things going on. This year was made for a very future. Well, it was made for a future life of people.
Yep, that's good. That's correct. But
yeah.
now I don't want to cut you off. I'll finish your point, and I'll put it in context.
Yeah. So obviously, with the Zohar coming out now, or coming out, I think it was the 1700s or something, it was brought forward because now it is time. Now it is time for the people to understand and realize what is going on. And I'm assuming it would be the same with the Kabbalah. The Kabbalah was, it was done, it was hidden, it was kept secret for specific reasons. And it was only once it got to that age where I think it's mentioned in one of the prophecies, it would be coming now. So that's why it's kind of now being released worldwide, so people will understand what's coming.
Okay, good. Let me contextualize that. Let me frame it a bit. So that's all correct, what you're saying, but I'll elaborate a bit. There were always keepers of the flame, people who are masters who knew this information. Keep in mind, it was a very different world then, much more insulated world, there was no travel. If you're born in a city, you usually died the same city you were born in. And people you knew a few hundred people in your whole lifetime. How much travel was really going on, there was definitely no technology and communications. So in a way, life was very simple, and there wasn't a need to necessarily go dig deeper into the deeper esoteric or mystical Kabbalistic meanings behind things. And people lived, I would say, a healthy psychological lives, and very, again, insulated. There were the keepers of the flame, as I said, the ones that knew. They passed it on. And there was also they protected it, because there's certain integrity in these deeper teachings, because it's subtle and it can be misunderstood or abused or misused. But as time passed, as you accurately say, for many reasons, the world changed. We're no longer living in that type of insulated world where you pick up certain, values from the smell of the chicken soup in your grandmother's kitchen. Today we have many, many, many influences, many forces. We're no living in a global. We live in a bigger village, a global village. We travel. Technology has opened up the whole world to all of us. So there's a need for much more deeper spiritual consciousness and awareness to face and counter all the forces that are essentially drawing us. Look at just advertising and marketing inundating us. So many ways, understanding the soul and understanding the forces the inner forces at work are much more critical today. Because if not, we can be easily swept away and overwhelmed by all the distractions outside there, as well as the fact that the world is evolving to a more spiritual place. The world is definitely evolving, from the Kabbalistic perspective, and I see you're aware of that. We are getting to a place where there's more fusion between matter and energy, which is basically the essence of technology. E equals mc squared, where the fact of the matter is that basically the soul and body and everything from the inner and the outer are getting closer. So the teachings of Kabbalah and its implications are all really very conducive today. As I said, people are comfortable with the invisible. Today it doesn't require faith to believe that there is atomic and frequencies, as you put it, and subatomic energy everywhere and in everything, and that there's an integral unity in all of the universe. And it's not a fragmented universe. It's a very unified world. All that is essentially those teachings of Kabbalah. And the Zohar does actually predict, as I think you alluded to, that in the year 1840, there will be an explosion of knowledge, both spiritual knowledge and scientific knowledge, basically corresponding with the Industrial Revolution. And now we have the computer information revolution. And I would always like to say that we're on the verge of a new spiritual revolution. With AI, it's becoming very clear that we are eliminating Machines will take over most of our mundane activities. And I just saw the interview with Elon Musk, and by Rogan asked him the question, so what will we be doing when we have all the machines taking care of all of our needs? So Rogan said, well, we'll be playing golf all day. And Musk answered, very interesting. Musk is one of your South African natives. And his response was, no, we'll be getting in touch with the truth of the universe. Those were his words, and he's not a Kabbalist.
But Rabbi, that's exactly what I said to Lee on an earlier podcast, even before the Rogan and that. I was like, I can't wait for because everyone's so scared of this AI business. And I was like, I can't wait for it to just take away all of this crap we invented. We invented all of these miserable jobs and taking our souls away. And once it's all taken and we've got nothing else to do but just kind of look at each other in the face and be like, geez, what was that all about? And start loving each other. I mean, obviously there's going to be a lot of like pain and suffering along the way because of, people are going to be like we're going to go through a stage of poverty, maybe, I don't know. But I was actually really excited because I hate my job and I actually can't wait for AI to take it over because then I'll be forced to go and find something else to do.
So yes, some people, there's going to be a big vacuum, but I think using Elon Musk's expression, we'll be seeking the truth of the universe, so Kabbalah fits right in. It's basically, look, I always put it this way. If you think your life is a machine, the machines are going to be better than you. You have to come to discover your life is a soul. You're not a physical being on a spiritual journey. You're a spiritual being on a physical journey. And that is the essence of Kabbalistic teaching. So it's coming hand in hand, right, with all the technological developments, AI and so on. Yeah. So there we are, on the same page.
But how did the Kabbalah come about? Because, I mean, like with... how did it start? I mean, I didn't even hear about it until I started looking at all this mystical kind of stuff. And I mean,
well, Kabbalah, just for the record, the word Kabbalah in Hebrew means to receive. That's what it means. And it has two meanings: that you need to have a teacher to receive from, and it also means reception, like in the context of frequency. You have to be sensitized. If you're not sensitive, you're not going to pick up the frequencies. When you're very callous or you're very distracted. So Kabbalah is really the study of the inner reality. It was, as I mentioned, it was always known by certain individuals, but it's really in the last 500 years that it began to be taught and published, and now also demystified. If you go back to original Kabbalistic texts, some of it is very cryptic. It's almost like a chemical formula that if you don't know how to decipher it, it's gibberish. Think of it like musical notes. If you don't know how to read a musical note, it looks like just a squiggle on the page. So Kabbalah was always there with us, like all inner wisdom. But now it's become far more popular. I would even say psychology. Psychology is a combination of two words in the ancient Latin or Greek. Psychology means the study of the soul. Psyche is soul, and logy is study. So it's always been part of our lives. Anyone who ever thought about human nature, thought about human psychology, we're really studying in a way Kabbalah, but they may not have known it as such. So it's really the study of what makes us tick. If conventional medicine, whether it's anatomy or biology or chemistry or dermatology, teaches us about the body, Kabbalah teaches us about the dynamics of the soul. What makes you tick? That you are made up of 10 faculties, 3 cognitive, 7 emotional. There are then the subconscious or I like to call the supraconscious forces at work. So what drives your life? What is love? What is hate, for that matter? What is discipline? So it's a study of the building blocks, you can call the spiritual DNA of every one of us and of the cosmos. So it's in the way, I love the parallels between Kabbalah, mysticism, physics, psychology. They all really intertwine into one bigger school of thought that gives you a formula of what is the driving forces that shape our lives.
Yeah.
But
so this has been documented over the years, but now recently it's become far more popular, and as we've been discussing, for good reason. People need it more than ever now, and it fits right into a world of AI and technology, which is all about discovering those inner forces at work.
Okay.
So, but Rabbi, like, when I started getting into more like a spiritualistic kind of viewpoint of everything, and started noticing there was more to me than just my body, I really went on a deep search, and I started looking at all of these mystical orders that have apparently like stood the test of time. And most of them, the Kabbalah is held in the highest regard in like maybe all of them. It's like the creme de la creme of mysticism. And even in like Rosicrucianism, which is apparently the mysticism of Christianity, because there's a lot of Gnostic kind of beliefs in there, they also have a huge part of it as Kabbalah. And so I noticed, okay, well, the Kabbalah, that's the thing. I've got to learn the Kabbalah because that's the root of all of this stuff, you know. So I went and I just got all the books on the Kabbalah, and, you know, get the Tree of Life and learning about the Sephiroth. I mean, about 90% of those books, I didn't actually understand the thing they were saying. And then I even was trying to find like some rabbis to teach me. And the one rabbi, because I did a documentary about him with him on a famous rabbi here in South Africa, and I said to him, I want to learn the Kabbalah, like how do I learn it? And he said, well, we in the Jewish faith, we see Kabbalah as like the dessert. You know, you got to learn the Torah and everything. That's the meal. That's the meat of it. And then only later on in life, you know, you'll learn the Kabbalah as like a dessert. We don't like just put it up front. And I mean, like all of us, I don't know what you would call us, like seekers and searchers. We all just want to go straight for the pudding, because that's apparently where the truth is. I don't know, but the thing is, it's so hard to know where to actually study, where to get the right information, where to get a proper teaching of it. Because I mean, I did another course with another rabbi, and she gave it seemed like, you know, she taught us about the Sephiroths and what they mean, and very different to what I'd learned in books and that, and certain meditations, but it was also very different from the other books that they were teaching meditation. Some books didn't even teach meditations. It was just a philosophical thing. They didn't even teach anything. It was more philosophy than kind of practices. So I don't know where to go, what to believe. And also the rabbi that I did study some of Kabbalah, it seemed a lot of the stuff was quite new agey, like of what's going on in the New Age community, and I really got confused because I'm thinking, is she just putting this stuff in? She's a female rabbi, by the way, in South Africa, the only female rabbi here. So I was thinking, I don't know if she's putting this stuff in from other traditions, or that is actually the true Kabbalah. I don't know. It's just all very confusing, and I don't know. You know, it's like, where do you get the real stuff? You know?
Okay, very good question. Look, that's part of the issue here so let me try to demystify it a bit and make it easy for you and your listeners to get a handle on it so you can really pursue it properly. There's no question that when you're dealing with we'll call it inner teachings of the soul, there are going to be many people who are con artists, and those that commercialize it, and those that abuse it. So the question really is, how do you find authentic Kabbalah, and what does it really mean? So responding to your rabbi, I would say the following. Kabbalah has many levels. On a basic level, the idea that you and I have a soul, that our soul is part of some deeper and higher reality, no, that's not dessert. I would call that the appetizer that precedes all meals. If you don't have that in place, the whole Torah is rendered meaningless. So the first foundation is, like we say in the morning, there's a Jewish prayer that says, it's actually a universal prayer, that says, thank you for returning my soul to me. Is that Kabbalah? No, soul is what makes you tick. A body without a soul is a corpse. So for anyone to have any appreciation of Judaism and Torah, the first thing is you need to have a connection to your soul, and your soul has purpose. I would love to ask your rabbi, studying about your soul and the purpose of your soul, is that dessert, or is that the foundation of everything? So I would say it's the foundation of everything. He's referring to deeper levels of Kabbalah when you get into, like any scholar, you know, you don't go to postgraduate medical school until you first go to medical school. So obviously there are higher levels. So I would begin by saying, let's start with the basics of understanding that you have a soul that makes you tick. Your soul is invisible, but it's a force within you. The soul is made up of faculties. The idea that your soul has a purpose in life, that every one of us has a mission. So I'll suggest some books that I think everybody can read that has somewhat demystified Kabbalah, that are, in my opinion, authentic and reliable. And then there's a journey. There's always more and more and more. I can't speak for all the teachers you've met because I don't know them, but I will just say my goal is to empower people that they should be able to sift and determine what's authentic, what's not authentic. I'll begin with something self-serving in a way. I've written a book called Toward a Meaningful Life. It's not per se cryptic Kabbalah, but it's based on Kabbalistic teachings and Hasidic teachings, but written in very universal, I would call it psycho-spiritual, psychological spiritual terms. So there's a book called The 13-Petaled Rose by Adin Steinsaltz. It's a very good introduction to Kabbalah. There's Aryeh Kaplan's book, Kabbalah Meditation, Meditation and the Bible. He has a book on the Book of Formation, which is a Kabbalistic work. So these are some, and there's probably more. You go online, search. Not all are credible or legitimate, but many are. And you start getting a taste of what it is. And it's a journey. I would definitely encourage anyone who's studying this should find a teacher that you can rely on, because a teacher can open up and suggest the right books and suggest the right ideas. But it is a wild west out there, and you have to know how to sift through it, like anything. Like if you want to learn about economics, there are good books and there are not good books. So I would look at it that way. I'm happy to provide anything I can offer. I mean, a lot of what I do, my videos and my classes, meaningfullife.com is my website, actually takes Kabbalistic teachings and tries to distill them for the average man and woman who may not have background or information, but makes it personal and relevant, and usually with a bibliography so you can read more. And it's like every type of study and experiment. It's like going to get a taste of it and start seeing and start learning about it. But I definitely think it's not just a dessert, it's absolutely necessary. There are definitely dimensions of Kabbalah that are very advanced, and that you have to study when you're ready for that. But the ABCs of it, what we're discussing now, understanding technology, AI, understanding your soul, understanding your purpose in life, to me, that's as critical as anything in life. And that's a lot of focus of what I teach, is trying to take Kabbalah and make it personal and meaningful and relevant.
Wonderful.
I hope that helps.
It does.
Put some context.
Yes, I can't wait to get on the
Okay, so
course.
now I'm going to take a step. I'm going to go a step a little bit further in. So looking at the Zohar, it mentions,
By all means, I'm with you.
It mentions the Ensof, the infinite. Now, if we're looking at the Ensof cannot interact with the mundane or the normal human. It has to come through certain, what would you call it, vessels.
Filters, regulators,
Yeah.
filters.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So I'm assuming this is kind of where the tree of life pops in now. But when it comes down to the human body, I've kind of been reading that the human body is actually divided into two separate spirit and, let's say, spirit and what did we say earlier? Soul, spirit and soul. They're two separate things. They're not the same thing. So spirit would be, for example, your outer, how you see the world, your five senses. It's the energy, the frequencies that you're using, like your smell, sight, hearing, all that kind of stuff. And then your soul is the inner workings. It's the things that connect to via the vessels through to the Ensof, like the mystical side of things. Am I kind of on the right track there, or am I confused?
I would probably rephrase it, but continue. I'll comment afterwards. Go ahead.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is that in every human being, there's two separate, maybe I don't know if entities is the right word, but there's two separate worlds that are going on: the subconscious and the conscious. Conscious being spirit, subconscious being soul. Soul is more to do with the divine spark, the divine, everything that's within us, and the spirit is more to do with the frequencies and energies that are outside, that we're dealing with daily, our focusing, our smells, the sounds, tastes. So yeah, that's kind of, is that the case, that there's two separate type of entity within each of us.
Okay, the way I would phrase it, if I may, would be the following. The Kabbalah teaches that there are 5 dimensions, actually, of the soul. And they are Hebrew names. I'll translate them. One is, you can say spirit. One you can say is, one is, well, let me translate it into English. One is biological life, the life force, that your heart is beating, your brain is working, you're breathing. We call that nefesh. That's like the most basic life force, essentially, of survival of existence. The next is emotional, our emotional lives, our feelings, love, attraction, repulsion, discipline, compassion. Then we have our intellectual lives, the way we contemplate on things, the way we analyze, the way we understand and appreciate and contemplate on existence. Then we have 2 more, the transcendent forces. This is where you're already getting into a purposeful life. It's the purpose of your life. The transcendence of connecting, as you put it, to the divine, to that which is greater than ourselves. The first 3 are still we'll call it the spirit and soul within us. The next 2 are the transcendent that lead us to another state, as you put it, it's called subconscious, you can call it the superconscious. And then the final 5th step is called total oneness, where you get dissolved and absorbed, where subject and object all become one, and you don't even feel your ego. It's like ego death, where you're just completely part of a higher reality. When like in the zone, you don't even feel like you're up all night, you don't even feel that you're tired or hungry. You're just in the zone, in the moment. So these are essentially what we would call spiritual states, higher and higher. Now, of course, in contrast, there's the physical human being just living. Most of us get up in the morning, we shower, or we exercise, or we eat breakfast, or have a coffee, go to work, and we survive on a very basic survival level. So it's a difference between living a survival-centric life, or we'll call it a mission-centric life, a spiritual-centric life. The goal is obviously to spiritualize our physical lives, that we shouldn't just be paying our bills and eating and sleeping and drinking and resting, but also elevating our lives to something more transcendent, something more purposeful, something more eternal, not just temporary, instant gratification. And that's, in a way, the way the Kabbalistic model works. Now, in this itself, there's a journey. We grow. Today, you introduce, for example, being a little kinder or gentler in your life, more sensitive and selfless. Tomorrow, you grow in that area, and you're constantly, it's like a journey, like climbing a mountain, reaching higher states of consciousness. And it's really an endless journey, a very exhilarating one at that. And that's really we'll call it the Kabbalistic way of living. You're living deliberately, with purpose, with drive that's not driven by the ego and by self-interest, but by a higher cause, connecting to the universe around you, connecting to people. In one word, we call that love, but it's a love that really helps you climb and reach awareness beyond your own, we'll call it myopic perspective. So it's like becoming part of the larger horizon and a greater reality than your own limited one.
Okay. Great. Well,
I'm not sure if I answered your question, but that's how I would frame it.
Yeah.
So, Rabbi, just if a person starts learning Kabbalah, like, I mean, that sounds amazing what you described there, and I mean, it's so appetizing. Just make anybody want to just get on there immediately. But I mean, a lot of these things that mystical things I've tried or paths I've followed or whatever, sometimes my life feels like it's going backwards. Like it's almost like it gets more chaotic, or like I face bigger problems, or I don't know. It seems, and I, like the teachers that I've been following for, and that I address this to them, and they always say to me, "No, it's because you're on the path now. That now all of the things that you need to work through and you need to get through and face are coming at you more quicker and more rapidly, so you can burn it through it, or whatever, or your karma, or whatever you want to, words they use to describe. And I always wondered, is that like really a thing, or is that just their selling point, like to keep you on their path? Or because it always sounds like when you do this stuff, you're going to be so peaceful, and so much your life's going to be more smooth and lubricated, and things are going to, and you're going to be more happy. I mean, you think that when you start Kabbalah, does that happen, or is that?
I think that's a little more the marketing of it. But let's, we're all adults here. We understand there are no magic pills. There's nothing you can do or say or study that suddenly is going to take away all your anxieties and all your pressures and all your problems. So whenever you hear anyone make such a promise, you can be a bit skeptical. I would put it this way. Kabbalah is a very serious, mature approach to life. It promises many beautiful things, but it's going to come with work. It will never come automatically. It's not like you just join a Kabbalah class and you'll suddenly hit bliss and calm. It will give you the tools to navigate the challenges of life. Remember, when someone promises you, I will give you a solution to all your problems, that's usually not the case. If they said to you, I will teach you tools how to deal with your problems, then you can trust it. Kabbalah offers tools. It's life skills. So life, think of it like riding on an ocean. And waves will come. There will be storms. Kabbalah doesn't take away the storms, but it teaches you how to navigate the storms. It teaches you how to maneuver. Gives you confidence. You come to discover that for every challenge in your life, you also have inner resources to deal with that challenge. So it's not just like, okay, I have some anxiety here, Kabbalah will get rid of the anxiety. No, Kabbalah will teach you how to get through it. And that's the promise I would make, instead of saying, that's it. It's going to come with work, but it will give you tremendously powerful tools. And I will add something, actually. Those tools are right now within you. You don't need to go buy them. They're in with you. You may not be aware of them. You have much more strengths and resources than you may ever know. And we often see that. You ever see sometimes in a situation under pressure and suddenly you discover strengths you didn't know you had? That's what Kabbalah does. It teaches you about those strengths. It helps you build confidence in them and courage. Let's be honest. A lot of the challenges of life are not the challenge themselves. It's a psychological warfare. Whether we have the confidence, very much often a challenge is demoralizing. It weakens you, and you don't have the willpower. I'll just use an example. Let's take an example from sports. You can have the number one tennis player on earth, but then he gets into a funk. He's injured, or he loses a match, and psychologically he doesn't feel the confidence. He didn't lose his skills. What does a good coach do? They teach you to rebuild your confidence that you already have. They kick you in the pants, and they help you get back on track. It's in your head. So a lot of it is, there are obviously objective challenges, but a lot of it is in our head. And if you can be confident to know you can see a light at the end of the tunnel, you can ask this, any marathon runner, anyone who's excelled will tell you how much of it is in your head. It's not just the physical challenges. Obviously you need to be fit, but you also have to have the spirit. You're around friends that are encouraging, that believe in you, that continuously say, you know what, you can make it. Or if you're around people who tell you, nah, you can't do it, you're never going to make it, who do you think you are? These things have very powerful impact. We have many factors in our lives that we can be our own worst enemy. Or we sometimes surround ourselves with people that are not necessarily the best for us. Let's be honest. I often tell people, one of the first things is find new friends. I'm not saying you have to eliminate your old friends, but get new, like fresh air. A fresh perspective, a new way of looking at things, because we get stuck in the status quo, in inertia, that keeps us doing the same thing again and again and expecting different results, which they call insanity.
Yeah, there we go.
It's also trust in the process, Will, because I think there's a lot of times where you won't know why it's happening. I mean, if I go back in my life and I see all...
Excellent point. It's like planting a seed in the ground. You can't pull flowers out of the ground. You plant the seed, you nurture it, you water it, and then there's a process. And the process emerges. We live in a fast food generation. Everyone thinks, press a button, Amazon, Uber Eats, I don't know what you have in South Africa, but here you press a button, in 20 minutes you can have everything at your door. Real life doesn't work that way. That's good for commodities, for objects. But real life, like love, finding love in your life, finding truth, finding purpose, meaning, is a process. That's why I like that word you said. You plant the seeds, you do the right things, there's a process, you have to respect the process, and it emerges. You can't force it.
Sometimes the process can take years, and you'll only realize at the end, you think, oh, actually, that's actually why that happened.
Hey, every one of us went through a process of 9 months at least till we came out into this world, right?
But you know what, Rabbi, sorry, now we're saying the process in that, is that I practice, I mean, I do certain meditations and stuff every day. Like, there's not a day that I don't miss meditations, a bit of breath work, and even cold plunges and stuff like that. And then sometimes I like look around me and I notice my friends that aren't doing any of the work, they're actually wiser than me. And I keep on thinking, like, I'm like, maybe this stuff isn't working. Maybe if I just did nothing, I'll just also be, maybe everyone just, because the universe is changing, whatever, the energies are coming through, it is naturally making us wiser. Maybe I don't actually have to do anything because
no, well,
my friends
that's your process. They've got different processes. That's your process. You need to do.
First of all, you don't know what's going on by other people. They may look all good and wise, but not necessarily. We don't know what's under the surface. Secondly, I agree very much so. It's your process, and thirdly, that's why it's important to have a mentor, to have a third party, an individual who you can objectively run by these questions. Like, maybe you are doing too much. Maybe you're trying too hard. Maybe you should be doing. I can't answer that question, but I would look at it. You need a good assessment and like an audit. Are you doing the right things? Maybe you're exercising too much. Maybe too little. I look at it more as an opportunity to review, and there's nothing wrong with modifying. And it's true. Sometimes trying too hard, maybe not the way to go. Sometimes you have to let go, and things emerge. It's very true. I find sometimes people. You have what's going for you. Maybe you should not be trying that, but it's case by case. I don't know if there's a rule, but the most important thing is don't look at others. Look at yourself. Try to get objective, someone that you trust, to give you an opinion, what they think, and like anything, and try to improve your. Basically, what you're trying to do is improve your spiritual and psychological and emotional health. That's really what you're trying to do, and there are ways that work, and there are ways that don't work so well. But that's something that needs to be reviewed. It's hard for me. I was going to throw in this suggestion. I recently, a few years ago, I developed an idea called immersing yourself in your spiritual spa. SPA, as in an acronym for study, prayer, action. Cognitive, emotional, and behavioral conditioning. Every day, getting your mind, like mindfulness or meditation, something spiritual, even for a few minutes. Prayer, P, for a spa would be something emotional, reading a poem, a song, something from the heart. And action, A, of a spa, something behavioral, a kind, random act of kindness, kind word, beautiful. Sending out a message, a text message, an email. I mean, what you're doing right here, this is a program that you sharing goodness and kindness with others, some type of behavioral. I find that everyone who does that every day on a regular basis, just like the body needs exercise, it exercises the muscles of your soul and makes you a more spiritual person, a healthier person, and more aware. That's what brings, I believe, true peace and harmony, where you sense every day, you find, I've done something today in some way for the world. I've moved the needle, in some way, made a small mark in my own way. And I find being proactive, being instead of reactive, doing something, initiating, is very, very powerful tool instead of reacting, because it empowers you to feel, I don't have to wait till someone comes my way. My father was a journalist. He would always tell me there are three types of people. People who make things happen, people who watch things happen, and people who ask what happened. So make things happen.
Oh, wow, Rabbi. And I think, that's just such a wonderful way to end it, because I feel like I do a lot of the S and the P and not enough A. So that's like, it really inspired me. Thank you.
There you go.
I'm gonna keep that in mind and start doing that every day. So thank you. That's really helped me a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Rabbi. Much appreciated having you on the show today. Yeah.
And I've been enjoying this. Your questions are great. I love this conversation. It's very human, while also very soulful. And I'm sure your audience will enjoy it as well. So this was great. And I'm always looking forward. We could do it again sometime.
Yeah, awesome.
Well, that'll be so great. I mean, once me and Lee start studying more of the Kabbalah and know a bit more, we'll have like deeper questions. So thank you.
And I'd like to say, you call it strange and mysterious world. For me, this is a very natural world.
Yes.
I find sometimes material existence as being very strange and mysterious.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, sure.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Cool.
But maybe that's the purpose. It's like turning the glove inside out and realizing the inner world is a much more natural place to be than the outer world.
Yeah, true. Yeah, exactly.
I prefer the inner world way more than I do the outer world.
Me too. Yeah. But you know what? Yeah. Part of the mission is to join the two.
Yeah,
let's put it this way. To discover the extraordinary within the ordinary, the mysterious within the regular.
Yeah. I know, because that's also another problem, Rabbi, is I actually start escaping. The meditation starts becoming an escape. Like we picked up my daughter today, I was so stressed, and I was supposed to do something in this hour, and I actually just escaped. I just sat there in the car and meditated for 40 minutes. And now I'm even more stressed now because I still didn't do that thing I was supposed to do. I would have done.
Well, that's why the action is very important to ground it. I know for myself, I'm also sometimes I escape into more spiritual realms. When you ground it, like whether with a child you have or some practical application, it's very healthy. It's like, think of it like a wick and a flame. The flame needs the wick to be grounded, or else the flame will just lick the air and escape.
Yeah, okay, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
No, great.
Awesome.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi Jacobson.
Thank you so much.
Have a good rest of your day.
And your wisdom.
Thank you. And it was great meeting you guys. Really enjoyable. I really thank you for the honor.
Oh, well,
thanks, Rabbi Jacobson. Thank you.
Okay, be well. Be well.
Bye. You too.
Bye. Right.
Did that speak to you, William? Are you feeling better?
Yeah, it did. Ideally, it's actually, yeah, it did.
But you know what?
It was really,
well, in my opinion, in my own opinion, I think you do too much. You're following too many routes. Just stick with the one. Stick with what we're currently doing, and just follow that.
Yeah.
So do your meditations every morning, and just do your mandamas, do your studies, and just go with that. Yeah, because obviously the Kabbalah is part of it. So,
I think everything we're doing is Kabbalah. I think we're just meditating is Kabbalah. I mean, that's what I picked up from what Rabbi was saying. So, but also, with our studies that we're doing, I mean, there's so much stuff that, like every third or fourth monograph, there's a practice or like a thing you should be like a meditation or something. And I mean, you can't fit all of that into one day. I mean, you go.
But I find that a lot of the stuff is like basic stuff. It's like, that's kind of where I am now, but it's like very basic practices, like picking up a stone without looking at it, feeling the texture, feeling the shape.
Yeah, but you'll see it builds more on, and it gets more. You'll get it's really. It obviously has to start somewhere very small, and it builds up. And it gets better and better. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but just follow that. Like with the whole bloody remote viewing, I stopped doing that. Just stop all of that stuff and just follow the one. If you're putting too much, you start like, oh shit, I still got to go do this. I got to go do that. Then I still have to study this, and I have to study that, and then by the end of it, you freaking lost.
It just actually makes you stressed.
Yeah.
But that's also with Rabbi saying you must find a teacher. It's hard because I've been searching for a teacher for like 6 years now, and then I always find one, and I get excited. I'm like, this is the guy, this is the girl, this is the teacher, this is the guru. And then I follow them, and I spend so much fucking money on it, and whatever. And then I find out they're always as lost as I am. I always figure out, like, after following them for like a year, 2 years, whatever, I'm like, fuck, this person is just as lost as I am. And then I got to go, and then I find the next person. That's what I love about the Rosicrucian thing, is that you get your monographs and you are your own master. You are your own teacher. And there's no one you have to look up to. But then the thing is, it does get a bit frustrating sometimes, because then I'm thinking, but then how do I do this? Must I do this? But then I do go to, when I go to the lodge, or the, whatever you want to call it, the prana house, the temple on Tuesdays, I do, there is guys that are more advanced than me, and I do get to ask them, like, okay, well, how do I do this and that and that? But they also sometimes give me a bit varying answers. So you know what I mean? But at least I'm my own teacher now, and I'm not having to like be disappointed.
Well, look,
I mean, I disappoint myself. But
you must actually go and listen to Rabbi Jacobson on YouTube. Go and listen to some of his stuff, because that's how I got to know him.
Yeah, I can't wait to get on it and have a look.
He's so sharp, dude. He's so good at what he talks about. And so when you go through the Kabbalah phase, that's also why I would like to next time talk a little bit more about the Zohar. But if you listen to what he's saying at the Kabbalah, and what to kind of, you'll be able to understand when you're going through it, even though, because I know we are our own masters, you got to teach yourself. You got to read the atriums or the mandalas and all the rest of it. But when you get to that point, you think, go watch what he does, and go watch what he talks about, and then you can implement that into, because I mean, these guys have got years of experience in the Kabbalah. I mean, years, decades of experience. So it helps a lot when you're listening to people that know what they're talking about.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Awesome, man.
So
that's
guys,
it for tonight. Yeah, cool. Thanks, everybody. Yeah, have a good one. Please don't forget to go to LSM TV. Go check out what's going on over there with all the documentaries. Yeah, that's it, Bill. Enjoy your photo shoot or your film shoots that's coming up now. And then we'll chat to you guys next week. Thanks, Bill.
Yeah, cheers, guys. Sorry, if Lee actually goes on a solo mission the next 2 podcasts, it's because I'm on a job. So sorry about that. And I'll see you in a few weeks. Sweet Lee.
Yeah, cool. Cheers, bud.
Cheers, bro.